There is a way of moving through life that doesn't tighten the fist around it. It looks like weakness to the part of us that believes control is the only safety. But test it, and you'll find a paradox hiding in plain sight. The more you release your grip, the more the living world carries with you and sometimes for you. Not because you've abdicated your participation, but because you've stopped fighting the current you're already swimming in. You can verify this immediately with something very simple. Each night you lie down and let go. You do not consciously calculate the angle of your neck, the rhythm of your breath, the precise moment at which the chemistry of sleep will wash you. You trust the system, heart, lungs, neurons to do what they've learned to do. Often you even whisper a quiet instruction, "Wake me at 6," and without an alarm, the body finds the hour. No committee meeting is required. No all-night vigil at the switchboard. You hand things over, and life proves it was never only over there. The intelligence you think of as outside is not separate from the intelligence you are. We are taught, often without words, to reverse this. We're taught that unity with life is achieved by mastering life, by cataloguing variables, by leaning over everything with a furrowed brow. We are trained to take the world by the lapels. Yet the more we clutch, the more the world seems to wriggle free. The more we supervise, the more everyone, including our own nervous system, feels micromanaged and resentful. The project of control breeds the very fragmentation it fears. The alternative is not apathy. The alternative is practical trust, participation from the open space we are, rather than domination from the cramped center we pretend to be. Let's not posture. Let's look. Pointing. Extend a finger towards something in the room. Your cup, a plant, a patch of light on the floor. You're pointing at an object. Edges, color, distance. Now turn the finger around and point back at the place you're looking from. What is present here at zero distance? A face? A shape? Any border at all? Or is there open, edgeless, capacity-clear room that includes the cup, the plant, the light, the thought? This is odd, the sensation in your hand. Don't assert. Check. Out there, forms. Here, formless host, the experiment is almost childlike and therefore hard to take seriously until you notice it resets your entire premise. If you are the capacity that holds the scene, your way of acting in the scene changes. One place the clutching habit exposes itself is in decision-making. We fear choices not because choice is inherently terrible, but because we believe we must assemble a perfect map before taking a step. We try to inventory the horizon. We pretend we can foresee every branch in the road, and when the pretense collapses, as it will, we add strain to strain. You've felt it. Endless toggling between options, as if the toggling itself were diligence. If you sat with the raw mathematics of what you're attempting, you'd laugh. The number of variables in even a small human choice is functionally infinite. And yet, every day, you choose, you move, you survive, you adapt. The perfect map-first myth is how fear stalls the engine. If you look more closely, you'll see that clarity rarely arrives by being forced. It often appears like a small bird that lands because you stopped chasing it. You gather a little information, yes. You check the obvious pitfalls, yes. But then the living system makes a call, sometimes quickly, sometimes after a night of sleep, and life meets you halfway with paths that weren't visible from the desk. You recognize this when you've allowed it. The right person answers. A skill you forgot you had wakes up. A constraint that annoyed you yesterday turns out to be the guardrail that kept you from tumbling. The help is not always grand, but it is real. This is not luck worship. It is cooperation with a patterned world. In living systems, strength does not centralize forever. Strength distributes. Forests do not survive by appointing a single general. They share resources through networks invisible to the eye that once obvious kings. Healthy teams do not depend on one heroic brain cell. They cultivate conditions under which many modest intelligences can coordinate. You've seen the difference. The leader who trusts and delegates multiplies ability, while the leader who hoards decisions exhausts both themselves and everyone else. What looks like surrender from the outside is often the only form of mastery that works over time. From the view of the Headless Way, this distribution is not a technique borrowed from the world. It is a reflection of what you already are. Check again. Point back. The center you thought had to carry everything, can you find it as a thing? Or do you discover open, centerless capacity that can host countless centers of action without strain? When you move from this openness, delegation stops being a tactic and becomes a natural expression. The self is no longer an anxious bottleneck. The world can pass through you more freely. Two-way seeing. Keep the scene in view. Voices, emails, steps on the stairs, and keep the openness here in view at the same time. This isn't alternation, it's inclusion. There is room for both the person you are and the capacity you are. When you speak from that double vision, your sentences relax. They become clear without being sharp, brief without being brittle. You stop performing certainty and start offering presence. The surprising thing is how effective presence is. It's as if the world has been waiting for you to stop clutching so it can hand you the next piece. Still, fear will argue, if I don't grip, I'll be irresponsible. But look at the times you gripped hardest. Did the grip produce intelligence or just tension? Did it invite cooperation or shut it down? Responsibility doesn't mean white-knuckling the wheel. It means serving what works. Sometimes what works is firm action. Sometimes what works is granting authority to the person who sees the situation from an angle you do not. Sometimes what works is sleep. The system you are includes all of these modes. Label and knower. Decisions stir up labels. If I let go, I'm weak. If I trust, I'll be betrayed. If I stop planning, disaster. See the sentence appear like a caption on your inner screen. Now ask, which is prior the caption or the open knowing that registers it? Rest as the knowing for 3 relaxed breaths. The caption may multiply. This is naive. This is too simple. Those are captions too. From the knowing, you can treat them as weather. Let them pass. The capacity doesn't need to outshout the captions. It simply does not need their permission to remain what it is. An image might help. Imagine a harbour at dusk. Boats move in and out. Some are loud, some barely ripple the surface. The water carries all of them. It shapes to each hull without losing itself. The water does not negotiate with the boats about being water. In the same way, the openness that you are can afford the comings and goings of plans, the arrivals and departures of people, the weather of mood. You do not harden into water by thinking, I am water. You test. Can I find edges here? If not, act from what you discover. What about control as safety? Consider even your own body the nearest property you think you own. You do not micromanage digestion or adjust each heartbeat manually. You do not calculate how much serotonin to release when a friend smiles. Most of your lived brilliance runs without permission, slips from thought. Thought is wonderful as a tool. It becomes miserable as a tyrant. When it insists on running the whole city, everything slows and snarls. When it serves the living traffic, it is beautiful. Direct seeing does not humiliate thought. It liberates it from impossible work. Thought can become a scout, a builder of bridges, a lucid explainer. It no longer has to pretend to be the king. People sometimes equate trust with naivety. They imagine a wide-eyed child handing the keys to a stranger. That is not what's on offer. The trust we're pointing to is functional and testable. Try it at the smallest scale. Hand a task to a colleague with real authority rather than fake authority. Watch how often adults become more adult when they're treated as such. Try it inside yourself. Give the nervous system a clear frame and a fair amount of sleep, then stop whipping it with late-night edicts. See whether your morning contains more intelligence than your midnight. You can also cooperate with the world by listening for the note it's already singing. Sometimes you find yourself in tune with conditions by accident, and the wisdom of the situation shows up as help you didn't plan. The tool you needed falls within reach. The right conversation happens in a doorway. The setback closes one path and reveals the better one you wouldn't have had the nerve to pick. This is not magic thinking. It's what emerges when you're not making your map loud enough to drown the terrain. None of this guarantees outcomes. You will still misread a room. You will still choose the wrong contractor. You will still say yes when no was called for, and no when yes would have been brave. But the price of control is that you pay with your whole life and still fail frequently. Only now you've added bitterness to the failure. The price of trust is that you fail at human scale and repair at human speed. You become easier to correct and quicker to apologize. People work better around you. You work better around yourself. Mirror. Stand before a mirror. The face over there belongs to the world shifting, aging, expressive. It is precious and it is not home. Without moving, check what is here, at zero distance looking out. Any face, any contour, or the same open, bright capacity that receives the face, the mirror, the room. Living from here loosens the compulsion to control your image. You can still groom, still present yourself, still aim for excellence, but you no longer confuse the hairstyle with the head, much less with the space. Suddenly, feedback stings less and teaches more. Praise warms but doesn't hook. You don't melt when someone sees you, or vanish when someone doesn't. The world's intelligence is not just out there in forests and marketplaces. It's inside the smallest motion you make. Consider how hands learn. You practice a skill until the thinking part can relax and the body takes the lead. There is a moment in learning an instrument, a sport, a craft where you stop trying and play better. What happened? Not laziness. Alignment. Control surrendered its counterfeit authority to coordination. The result is more power, not less. The same law applies to conversation, leadership, parenting, friendship. Tightening is not the same as caring. Loosening is not the same as neglect. The art is to find the grip that serves and relax everything else. When you relax what doesn't serve, energy becomes available that you didn't think you had. The hours of the day stretch. Humor returns to rooms that had gone humorless. Creativity resumes in the mind that had turned into a spreadsheet. You notice that many urgent tasks were not tasks but rituals of anxiety. Some remain important. You do those better. Some evaporate. You don't miss them. Eventually you reach the oldest paradox of all. Letting go is not something you do. It is something that happens when you see that holding on is impossible. Everything you cling to, status, opinion, identity moves. Not out of cruelty, but because movement is the nature of things. Faces alter, roles change, seasons flip the light. Every day is a small rehearsal for the big letting go. The rehearsal is not morbid, it's relief. Reality opens your fist finger by finger and invites you to carry what can actually be carried. Attention, care, skill, gratitude. This is where trust ripens from a strategy into a stance. It is not a vow you repeat to comfort yourself. It is the unavoidable conclusion from actual looking. If the me I thought I had to protect cannot even be found as a thing, only as a mask over the openness I am, then who exactly is doing the protecting? The space itself doesn't need armor. The character may wear armor in a battle. That's fine. But the space doesn't mistake the armor for its skin. Card of the day. Hand it over, then help. Choose one place today where you are white-knuckling. Name it. Hand it over for an hour, either to a person who can own it or to your larger system. Sleep, a walk, a timer that ends analysis. During that hour, do 3 rounds of pointing, out then back. Keep two-way seeing while you do one small helpful task, and label the loudest sentence in your mind, resting as the knower for a breath. Then return and act. Notice whether the action is clearer, kinder, or simply smaller and better. The headless experiments aren't decorations on top of trust, they are the infrastructure of it. They return you to the only place trust makes sense, right here. This isn't a removal from responsibility, it is responsibility relocated from an imaginary control tower to the living field that actually flies the plane. You will forget. You'll tighten around a choice, interrogate your past, stage a trial for the future, and sentence the present to waiting. When you notice the tightening, do not add a second layer of blame. That is control again, wearing a spiritual hat. Smile really at the mind's diligence. It tried to keep you safe with the only lever it knows. Then point out, point back. Keep the world and the openness in view together. Say the label out loud if you must. Let the knower be prior again. From there, let the next action be small. Small is dignified. Small is how the living world moves. In time, you may find that what you really want becomes harder to name and easier to live. Plans still exist, but they are less about self-rescue and more about contribution. Desire is less a shopping list and more a direction. To participate cleanly, to build what you can, to repair what you harm, to rest when it is time, to enjoy without permission slips, to meet others without recruiting them into your private war. Paradoxically, this makes you easier to trust. People sense when they are not being conscripted, and if fear asks for one last reassurance, but will this work? Answer it plainly. It already does at countless scales. Your body is proof. Your best conversations are proof. Every time you laughed yourself out of a useless argument because you remembered the wider room, that was proof. Every time you slept instead of forcing a midnight masterpiece and woke with the right sentence, that was proof. Every time you stopped hovering over someone competent and watched them grow, that was proof. None of these moments announced themselves with trumpets. They arrived quietly, like good weather. So test it now. Trust the wider system. Delegate inwardly and outwardly where you can. Use the experiments to keep your feet on the ground and your view wide. Let the intelligence that doesn't need your permission have your cooperation. Watch what returns when you hand things over and then help. You may find, to your surprise, that the power you were chasing appears precisely when you stop impersonating a god and resume being what you are. Open capacity, playing a human role, moving with the world rather than over it.